Hello, everybody. Welcome to Simon on the Sofa. Yes, it's me again, still on this beautiful sofa. Well, a different sofa today because I'm traveling around at the moment. And I just want to, as always, a big thank you to my beautiful patrons of the sofa. If you don't know what patron of the sofa is, please just head over to patreon.com/Simon on the Sofa. And there's a short video there for you to watch. And you can actually become a patron now and support Simon on the Sofa. And that's not just Simon on the Sofa, these conversations, but you're also supporting all of the quest of love that I'm on, from global love letters, spreading love out in the world, from the retreats I do, and then many other things that I'm doing on this, you could say, as an ambassador of love. And these conversations just, they just continue for me to continue to meander and teach me and educate me. And today we're with a wonderful man. Well, in fact, I'm aware of Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., who's with us today. Hey, Don.
Hey, Simon. How you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Great to have you here, and thank you for giving up your time this morning. I know it's early in the morning where you are.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to be on your program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So you basically, I'm just gonna I don't know if you know how we can go with the flow, Miguel. So we're just gonna flow, and I know you're totally open to this, but I guess just for people watching the Simon on the Sofa, it's probably good for me just to say that, I mean, I am aware of Don Miguel Jr. pretty much via his father, and his father has also written some awesome books, and Miguel Jr., the son of Mr. Miguel Ruiz as well, right? To two Miguel Ruiz, it's like, who do I say? Which one, right?
Sometimes people call me Mikey because of that.
Sorry, say that again. What did you say?
Sometimes people call me Mikey because of that.
Yeah, okay, so that's nice. So basically, I got introduced to Mikey's work. There you go, Mikey's work via the books of. And I really want to mention him here, and today is really about you and where we're going with this conversation. But I really want to mention that the wisdom that's come through from, the 4 Agreements, just epic book, Mastery of Love. These are the ones that I've come across. The Voice of Knowledge, and I'm just picking up the Life and Death, one of your fathers. And then I come across, your first book, which was all about the awareness and self-love, right? That's the first book, was about awareness and self-love.
Yeah, the 5 levels, yes.
Right. So I came across that by my wonderful friend, if she's watching today, Natalie. She was like, she had it on the side, and I was like, who's that? And she's like, well, that's Don Miguel's son. I was like, wow, can I borrow that book? And she's like, yeah. And then that obviously led me to just to your work and your message, and and there's just this natural gravitas towards, you speak very similar in the way that you express yourself in your books to your father, but you also have your own voice on it, which is really lovely. So today, I think what I'd love to do, Mickey, is like this, what's alive in you now and where you at? Because I mean, based on the Toltec wisdom and based on what we could talk about, we could be here for hours, and I don't think I would get bored, right? So what's alive in you now, and then I'll explore some of the things. I'll make sure I remember some of the things I want to ask you.
Well, what's alive for me right now, mostly the main thing is my family, my wife and kids. They're in finals, so right now it's dealing with and helping them deal with the end of school year and getting ready for summer. That's my number one first gig I have. That's my main job as a father and husband. That's the main thing I do. I schedule my interviews when the kids are in school, and when they are back home, I'm full on, hands on. That's the most alive there is in me. Of course, there's my new book coming out next week with the Mastery of Self, and I think it's one of the most nice things to be able to see some of your dreams come true. The key to success is just keep following through on your dreams. The effort that we apply to creating that thing, that's just finishing that. That's a wonderful thing. We get to be able to read a book that I've been working on for these past 3 years. I get to see my little girl, my little boy get a lesson, and they're able to repeat it on you. I'm watching Audrey do an experiment on how to drop and protect an egg, and watching her go through all the experimentation, understand what a hypothesis is, understanding what a theory is. And I'm like, wow, she's only 8 years old, and she's already understanding the concept of the difference between a hypothesis, theory, and fact. It's something wonderful to always see someone's light bulb just go and clicks, and it's on there. And most of what I write is exactly that. My life is my teacher. My father taught me so much. My grandmother taught me so much, but it's life that really was the one that showed me what it was like. Because there's, we understand things from concept and theory, such as reading stuff from the book. When I was young, this whole family tradition felt like something that belonged in a book or in a museum. And what does that have to do with my life? And when we're young, that's sometimes how we see life, because we're so used to reading about history and life through books rather than the experience of it all. We're struggling so much with getting that good grade or, hooking up with someone when you're that young, But then life happens, the bubble bursts, you graduate from college, you graduate from the university, and all of a sudden you're not working towards a grade, you're working for, well, what do you want your life to live? What do you want to create with your life? Sometimes we go and find a job where, we always do tasks to satisfy a boss. Sometimes we decide to be our own boss and we create our own task, but we're always creating, we're always doing. And to me, that's what's alive in me. I'm 40 years old. I'm the sum of every choice I've ever made in my life. At the same time, I'm the youngest I will ever be. I have my whole life ahead of me. What do I want to do with it? I just turned 40 a few 5-6 months ago, and what do I want my 40s to look like? What do I want to create? And what I'm creating right now is that I finished. You can say the marathon of writing a book comes full circle on Monday when my book comes out. Then I'm running a half marathon 3 weeks later when I'm physically running, and I'm aiming to finish with a 2 hours and 10-minute pace. Then I am watching my little kids go from 3rd and 6th grade to 4th and 7th. I'm watching my wife handle all these things. I'm watching my father retire and coming back out of retirement. I'm watching my brother. It's a wonderful time to be alive. So for me, that's what's alive in me. I'm living life. This is a moment where I get to interact with you, Simon, and spend an hour talking to you, and I'm gonna enjoy every moment of it. And that's it.
Beautiful, wonderful. Yeah, thank you, and thank you for covering all those little nuances and different bits. And I know even within them, there's so much depth and even more aliveness in each of the people and the experiences that you mentioned. So rich. So for me, what's alive in me is that having read your books, and I'm currently reading I'm almost finished actually, the 5 levels of attachment, which is your second book, which if anybody's watching, this is another beautiful book, just looking at how we're attached in the 5 levels. Obviously, that's what Mickey's talking about, but the way he describes it and breaks it down with some very simple metaphors and analogies is really awesome, because you can bring it and relate it into any area of your life. And I really, what's also alive in me is that, having also listened, because I listen to audiobooks, I listen to a lot of your father's books on audio, and I've listened to them multiple times, and I've also shared some of the chapters in the retreats that I do. So really what's alive in me, as you was talking as well, is I think maybe for the audience, I'd love to, the word domestication just keeps popping up in my head, right? And it's like, and maybe when I think of the Miguel Ruiz, and the Toltec, I'm constantly just got this domestication in my head, and maybe that's something that feels alive in me now. And when you talk about your children, Am I right, Mickey, that one of your children has autism? Did I read that right? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that, yeah, just the way that you and your father view life and the way that you view life, I'd really love to also hear how you're dancing with the domestication of our species, and then how you bring that maybe into even your children's lives and your family's lives.
Oh, of course. Well, like you said, first I have to describe what domestication is. Domestication is a system of reward and punishment by which we model the behavior of an individual. If you live up to the expectation, you get a reward. If you don't live up to the expectation, you get a punishment. And part of our perception is through our emotional body, that we have emotions. That reward feels like acceptance, which feels like love. And when we get the punishment, when we don't live up to the expectation, that feels like rejection, which is the lack thereof of love, which means that we learn conditional love through domestication. That's the end result. And at the same time, we become subjugated. Our will, the way we express our yes and no, is subjugated by a belief or a condition that dictates how I'm supposed to live life. That's part of the conditioning, or that's left from domestication, complete and total subjugation of the will. Plus, with a motivator of love, conditional love being the main motivator that gives power to our domestication. But here's the thing. In regards to my family, my dad, when he held my son for the very first time when he was born, my dad held him in his arms. Then he looked at us, me and my wife, and he said, "You guys created a beautiful child. Now domesticate him." And I'm like, what? The man who wrote the 4 agreements is telling me to domesticate his grandchild, my son? And that's the way my dad always taught me. Like, here's the problem, figure it out. That's one of the essence of how my father teaches us. You know, if we want to learn how to swim, he'll push us into the pool. If we wanted to learn how to speak in front of audience, he'd call us up to the stage, leave us there with a microphone, and we can either walk with our tails between our legs or open our big mouth, and haven't been able to shut up since. It's one of those things that he lets life teach us. So he tried to tell me, domesticate him. If you don't, someone else will, and they will be ruthless. So figure out what I mean by this. And what I've come to realize 10 years, almost 11 years after that moment, is that life domesticates us, but it's different than the way humans do it with each other. You see, we humans use the motivator as conditional love as the motivator. But life domesticates us with action, reaction. For every action we take, there is a consequence. If we live in a place where the weather is so extreme, for example, the winter, you live in Alaska, and you know that your winters are going to be brutal, then you do work in the spring, summer, and fall. You harvest, you plant the food, you harvest the food, you cut down the wood, you prepare the house and fix any problem, you put food into the jars, you get warm clothes, you do all these actions that give you an end result, a consequence that allows you to survive winter. If you don't do any of that work, you're going to have a very tough winter that you may or may not survive.
Right.
There's a direct consequence to the action. If we don't pay our bill, I'm not going to be able to pay for the electricity that's allowing me to talk to you right now. It's a consequence. Life is action, reaction. The difference is the motivator. The motivator is not conditional love. The motivator is, what do I want in life? What do I want to create? For example, since we're talking about our kids, do I domesticate them? Yes and no. No, I don't condition them or subjugate them, their will with conditional love. But I do domesticate them in a different way, which means I allow them to have the choices of the consequence they have. For example, Alejandro with his autism, he's very high functioning. And his teacher sends me notes every day of certain behaviors, not his grades, but his behaviors. If he screams, if he screams in class, we have certain things, like we don't castigate them and reproach them saying, what a bad boy you are. No, we don't do that.
Right.
What we do is like, all right, you chose to scream. All right, there's one consequence. One frowny face. He sends me a frowny face. No iPad. He doesn't get to play with the iPad, but he's able to play with his Nintendo. He's able to play with his friends. 2 frowny faces, no Nintendo and no iPad. The reason why iPad is because my son is highly motivated. He loves playing with the iPad. So I use that as a motivator. Like, oh, you want to play with this? Know that you have an action, a choice. If you have a choice that has a negative consequence like that, then the consequence is going to be you not going to be able to play with it. It's a form of punishment, but not a castigation. It's just like, oh, a consequence. So you take out one frowny face, you take out the iPad. 2 frowny faces, you take out the Nintendo. 3, now you're grounded. You can't go play outside. I take out the things I want to take out anyways, but I always leave him the choices. But I always leave the choices to him. I always say, well, here's the consequence of your actions. It's the story that my dear friend Heather Ashamara tells. She tells a story of a famous scientist whose name I don't know, but apparently he's famous. And he tells a story that when he was young, he went to the kitchen and he opened up the fridge, the refrigerator, take out the carton of milk, and it slipped through his hands and it spilled all over. His mom comes out and goes, oh, good gracious, look, another learning opportunity. Well, first things first, let's clean up the mess. That's the consequence of this particular action. We clean up the mess we have. So she gives him all the stuff to clean up. She allows him to clean it. She follows right behind so it could be cleaned to her specific needs. When they finish doing the consequences, which is the cleaning up, she grabs the carton of milk, rinses it out, then fills it up with water, puts it back in the fridge and says, let's try that again. The thing about it is that when we raise a child, we're raising them, we send them first to school to catch up to humanity. We send our kids to school simply to catch up to what we humans have been creating over the millennia. That's why we send them. But the one thing I want to teach my son and my daughter, because it's the similar situation with her, even though she's not in the autism spectrum, I still do a similar thing, is that I want them to be able to trust their own choices, to trust their own capability to make a decision and know that there are certain consequences that happen. Because we do live in a world where there's consequences to certain actions we take. The thing is that which consequence do you want? Do you want this consequence or do you want that consequence? With my daughter, I simply say, well, if you do your homework, there's this consequence. If you don't do your homework, there's this consequence. Which one do you want? And I don't reprimand her. I don't say, you better do your homework. I say, okay, which one do you prefer? And she makes a choice. And that's what I really want. So in my home, me and my wife follow this. You know, we do our best not to raise our boys, and we do our very best. Sometimes we don't. But always know that we're always giving them our love. Our love for them is not a condition. Our love for them is there. You know, even when they make a mistake, even when they run afoul on the house and make a mess, we're like, all right, well, that was your choice you made, and now you're going to have to clean it. And daddy and mommy are not going to help you. But we want you to clean it up because, well, that's the choice you made. You know, my little girl had a friend over a couple of days ago, and my wife and my sister-in-law decided to take the dog for a walk, and we're gone for 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, my Audrey decides to text everyone saying, emergency, emergency. You know, she cried wolf, and everyone came rushing like, what's wrong? So, you know, it turned out that it was all a prank. But now we're like, all right, well, now the consequence is that. No, your privileges to play with mommy or daddy's phone are revoked for a certain period, and don't do that again. And in certain circumstances, well, you won't have a sleepover for a while.
Right.
I explain this because this is how we do it in our household. And the thing about parenting is that as soon as you become used to being a parent of a 2-year-old, they turn 4. As soon as you get used to being the parent of a 4-year-old, they turn 8. Every new birthday makes everything you know about parenting irrelevant because that person is changing. So part of raising a child in expressing unconditional love is the willingness to see them for who they are, because they're the ones who are really teaching us how to be a parent to them, because they're still an individual. So it's that balance of respect. And of course, as a parent, I am not their best friend. I am their father. Out of 7 billion human beings in the world, I'm the one who has that connection with them. And it's much deeper than a friend. I am there to give them all the love and support because I love them. And I'm going to engage them as a parent. Any person can have a child. What makes a parent is the willingness to engage a child to raise them. So anyways, that's my point of view.
Beautiful. Yeah. So and there's a lot there. There's a lot there because I have this conversation around now it's beautiful that you used it and brought it back to yourself around your family and what's happening right in the home, because when we talk about domestication, a lot of the times we're talking about the collective conditioning of how we act and the way that we've sort of grown into, right? We've been born into certain conditioned ways of being and on a sort of collective way. And I often use just like a computer program, right? We have these programs installed in us, and often a lot of them are super outdated and a little bit, I call them upside down, a bit dysfunctional. And when you sort of start to look at, start to explore the truth and what it means to really show up in today's life, in today's society, it's nice to hear what you say, because when we talk about Nintendo and we have the computers and we have all this other stuff going on, and let's still be honest, it's a big chunk of the population that have no concept or understanding that we even have programs in us that are actually causing us dysfunction, right? Yeah. So when we start talking about Toltec wisdom or any wisdom that comes from that place of really trying to highlight where maybe we've been a little bit subjugated by beliefs and conditions and programs that were not ours, or like you beautifully described, we didn't get a choice. It's not like at school, like you're saying with the children, that we got a choice. Like, hey, you can choose to go this way and this and this, might happen, because nobody was even aware of the domestication in, well, I'm not going to say nobody, but on a sort of mass scale, nobody was aware of the domestication, right?
And that's the thing. It's like sometimes people confuse domestication with education because, like I said before, in education, we basically share from one generation to another. That's the main focus of an oral tradition. We're sharing what we know with the next generation. That's the purpose of education. But the reason why we confuse it with domestication is because we use, like, if you get a straight A's, you are top of the class. If you get straight F's, well, you're going to be treated dramatically different. You're no son of mine if you get any C's. There's people who even say, if you get a B, how can you live up to the family name?
Right.
And it's that kind of thing that, we have a system that implements education through domestication, and that we try to motivate someone with a punishment. Oh, if you don't do this, here's the punishment. If you don't do this, here's the punishment. And we don't think we have a choice, but we do that. We do that with the way we dress. We do that with the way we think. We do that with our family values. We do that with our relationships. One time, you can say that between couples, we're fighting to see who's going to domesticate who's going to make the other person fit the image of what we think should be not only the definition of beauty, but the definition of what our beloved should be like. And that's what most of the time we see, a battle of who is going to impose their will against who until you have peace. But not peace in the sense of respect, but a peace of, I impose my will and you're subjugated. Every parasite will find his or her perfect host. It's like, if you believe that old story, like you can't be a man if he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes as me. Like Mick Jagger said, consumerism says you can't be a man if you don't have this. You can't be a woman if you don't have that.
Right.
Can you imagine how many businesses would go out of business if people actually love themselves just the way they are?
Right. It's so lovely that you bring that in, because I was going to say when you spoke earlier as well, it's like so much of what our children are, because, you know, if we think about it, it's the next generations, right? And it's like so much of what our children are being fed, you know, is still, you know, we're still having to have that dance where we want to give them the, you know, the free will, the freedom of, like, you know, they see it all, experience it all, and make choice. And alongside that, we want to I speak for myself, I want to navigate people to maybe be able to see beyond some of the, like what you're pointing out, society's massive indoctrination of manipulation, control. And again, I use the word because we're with you today, but the domestication of our species. And like you said, in a world of self-love, and I know you talk about self-love, which is one of my huge topics as well. And you know, when we talk about self-love, like you just said, so much in our today's society, and the needless purchasing, the buying, the object form, the status symbols, I mean, they literally dissolve, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all an illusion. It's our society, what in the Tota tradition we know as the dream of the planet. It's a virtual reality because it only exists while we say yes to it. You know, our belief only exists while we keep believing it, while we say yes. As soon as we change our mind, we turn that yes into a no, our belief ceases to exist. And it's continuously changing. For example, the expression, I live in a red state. In the 1950s, that meant that you lived in a communist socialist state. Fast forward to 2016 here in America, to say I live in a red state means that you live in a place that votes conservative Republican. The complete opposite. The expression is still the same, but the definition has changed because society has changed.
Miguel, share that share the second part. I heard the first part, the red state back, and then it froze on you. But repeat the second part.
Well, okay, so the expression "I live in a red state" in 1950s, that meant that you lived in a socialist communist state. But if in 2016, it means that you live in a state that votes conservative Republican. The complete opposite of the political spectrum. The expression hasn't changed, but the meaning has, because society has, because the agreements that give meaning to the expression have changed. But if you understand that can change, then our definition of beauty has also changed. Our definition of love has also changed. Our definition of democracy, of liberty, of love, of status has changed. You know, the whole thing of caste only exists while people continue believing it. As soon as people stop believing it, there's no such thing as a caste anymore. There's no such thing as status anymore. Right. Status only exists while people continue to believe in it. You know, like there's the idea that a diamond actually is worth something, but if you try to resell it, no one will buy it. Or you can say that certain status symbols, well, they were in the 1980s, certain status people, things that if you put it on now, there's nothing status about it. It's a lemming. It's a lemon. So in that sense, if you understand that society continuously changes and we're continuously trying to live up to what society is trying to say what we're worth, then we're basing our worth on an illusion. We're basing our worth on an idea that no longer reflects the truth. And if we can see it from that point of view, then who am I? What am I? And if we're based who we are on those status and those conditions, of course we're gonna do our best to not let go of it, to continue to attach to it, because what happens if it changes? What happens to us? We have to stay straight. And you can, from that point of view, you can see why an attachment grows, why people become so stingent and attracted and attached to that belief. You know, for example, if something like the Soviet Union that existed in the 1960s, and by 1994, it ceases to exist because there's not enough agreements to keep it alive. The agreements failed. That's what an agreement is. An agreement's just a word that reflects the action of saying yes. But if it only exists because people are saying yes, then it's an illusion. The truth exists with or without us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I really enjoy that, because when we, like, one of the things I do now in my relationships and even in life is with friends and so on, is I'm always saying, like, what are the agreements? Like, what are our agreements here? And you know, I've used that term definitely since I read the book Four Agreements, and I dived into, you know, just this. I mean, I was basically walking the path, Mickey, around transparent communication. So I was like saying, in order for us, the language of love for me is being able to be transparently free, being able to feel liberated, you know, being a sovereign being, not needing to be defined by anything outside of ourselves, and definitely not by anything that, you know, these agreements that are out there in the world that seemingly are leading so many of us along. Actually, you know, I don't want to agree to those. So I went on this sort of a quest of what is love and what is truth. And it took me on this path of the more transparent I can be, the more liberated that I can be, the more I let go of the things that are holding me confined, then of course, you know, the more transparent I am, and nothing can actually attach to me. So I'm all of a sudden, I'm letting go of the fear. And then when I read your father's book, obviously he took it, you know, he's called it impeccable, you know, it's a similarity in impeccability to your word, and the whole, you know, the depth of what that really means. Because yeah, okay, it means it has power and being impeccable, but like that in itself, if you like, that can be a life practice to become impeccable to your word, right? And to reprogram these agreements that you're mentioning today. And also, I love the attachment, you know, the attachments as well, because the attachments, and tell me, you know, I'd love to hear your insights on this, but your attachments have also come from the agreements that we've agreed to in that illusion that you're talking about, right? Yeah, exactly. So it's all like, it's all held up by like you said, illusion, right? Madness, almost just false belief, or just collective belief, let's say. Let's not call it false belief, the collective dream. I know you and your father say the collective dream. But I love, yeah, I love as the conversations are moving along to like, yeah, to really look at where we are as, I'd love to hear where you feel we are as a sort of evolving species. Because I see myself, and a term I like by Charles Eisenstein, in between stories, you could say in between dreams, where there seems to be this, so many lovely new agreements birthing, and people are sort of coming to them. But also there's still that huge set of old agreements that don't want to die, you know, they don't want to leave.
And they don't want to die because we're still attached to them. We still know them as a society. You see, like, for example, the expression, be impeccable with the word. The word is an empty symbol whose definition is completely subject to an agreement. The words we use mean something because we give them meaning with our agreements.
Right.
It's just an empty symbol. Like you and I are speaking English, that because we both desire to be understood by one another, so we use a system of symbols that allows us, for you and I, to understand. But even within our language, there are words that can be misunderstood, or because the definition might be different for you as for me. You know, there's innocent words here in America that if we say them in the UK, they may not be so innocent anymore. You know, there's the word like fanny. Fanny here in the States is an innocent term, but in UK it's, you know, it's something that is considered a rude, demeaning, vulgar word, but it's spelled the same way, pronounced the same way, enunciated the same way, but two different communities separated by a body of water have given two different definitions. That here in America, it's such an innocent term that some people name their daughters Fanny, and they go in the UK and say, "Hi, my name is Fanny." They're like, really?
Yeah.
And because the word is an empty symbol, and the definition is completely subject to the agreement of a community. If we can understand this concept, then we can see that agreement in a slightly different way. Be impeccable with your intent, because it's the intent that gives meaning to a word. And what I mean by that is that the same energy that I use to move my arms, to move my legs, is the same energy I use to create a thought. And it's also the same energy I use to give meaning to a word. That's why a word is so powerful, that it has an intellectual definition. It also has an emotional definition, like this word. There's words that have emotionally charged, negative, both positive and negative. You know, someone used to say to me, to be impeccable with the word is to always say the truth. Well, here's the thing. Sometimes we say the truth with so much emotional poison that you're not being impeccable at all. You can say that. Well, and what is the difference between being impeccable then? Well, am I using the word to subjugate my will, to expose conditional love, or to use it with unconditional love and liberate myself? To me, that's the huge difference between impeccability of the word and not being impeccable. If I'm being impeccable, I'm using my words.
Say that again, because you froze, and I think we really want to repeat that.
Well, to me, to understand that meaning of be impeccable with the word or be impeccable with the intent is that I can either use my word to subjugate my will, to domesticate my will, or I can use it for unconditional love and liberate my will and liberate myself. You can say, if you can see that difference between the two, you can see the difference about that impeccability of the word, that I use it to give meaning to my words with awareness, complete understanding. You know, for example, if we take the example of The Matrix, the movie, the red pill versus the blue pill. If you don't want to hear how someone else dreams, you won't take the pill at all. You like, no, this word Fanny is a derogatory, demeaning, sexist word, and you may be a Mexican American, but how can you call yourself spiritual by using that word? Also at that point, we don't listen to one another. But if you say to me, what does that word mean to you? That benefit of the doubt, the willingness to listen to how someone else sees that word, allows us to have a bridge that allows us to understand. It's like taking the blue pill from Morpheus and says, let me take myself out of this matrix. The willingness to see how someone else dreams, how someone else lives, how someone else understands. With that ability to listen, it allows us, one, to have a cleaner bridge of communication, but it also allows us to become aware of the truth that the words we use are just a vehicle, just an instrument that allows us to understand, and that instrument can either create such a wonderful dream of harmony, of mutual respect, where I see you as my equal because we're both alive at the same time, or it can create this imposing and subjugation, this battle of who's going to domesticate who's right, who's wrong. And we have the battles we have throughout the history of the world. And we can see this imposing and subjugation all throughout our history books, you know, both from the United Kingdom and here in America, and Latin America, Asia. We see those battles, but the story of giving each other that humanity, that ability to see each other as equals, comes from the ability to listen to how someone else dreams. To me, unconditional love is allowing someone to see who we are just the way we are, without a filter that distorts my perception, without something that distorts or corrupts my perception. I take it all out and I'm willing to see life as is, because I'm willing to listen and hear the truth, even if that truth goes against my whole point of view.
Yes. Yeah. I was listening there. I don't know if you saw me. I was absorbing that. I was listening to, you know, how the mind works, or the thoughts work, and you're listening, and you're wanting to just be present with the listening, and listening itself is a skill that we don't get taught, and we still don't get taught in our schools and so on. And actually, you know, we have 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth, yet we all get taught how to talk and speak and you know, and shout, and because that's how we feel we need to be here and be heard, and we need to, you know, we need to use these vocal cords, but our ears are so powerful. And what I was hearing you share there was just this: when we listen and we try to understand before needing to be understood, when we actually come from that place, we're actually changing the way that we engage with another. And I also had the words of the 5th agreement echoing to, which was just this really having discernment, but also honoring and respecting everybody's dream, right? Honoring and respecting everybody's dream, without judging it and then down, and then acceptance, and within that acknowledging and just honoring everyone to be where they are, regardless of, like you just said, whether you think it's true or not true. It's very much about just that, really, just that is allowing free will and acceptance of all diversity. And then through that, I mean, for me, I'm speaking now as it's arising, but then I'm going, that's how we're allowing peace to flow, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. It's that ability to listen that allows us to create agreements that reflect life as is. Being skeptical, people sometimes think it's la, 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 I can't hear you. No, that's not being skeptical at all. To me, skepticism, it looks like this. I'm going to withhold my yes, and I'm going to withhold my no. And I'm going to allow myself to listen before I say yes or no. That's what skepticism is. It breaks the cycle of the automatic yes and the automatic no, the consequence of our domestication. With domestication and that subjugation, our beliefs, our conditions control our will, control what we say yes to and what we say no to. We say yes and no without awareness. It's completely automatic. To stop the cycle of the automatic is exactly applying the fifth agreement, be skeptical but learn to listen, which is simply withholding a yes and no, like a reset button. And then when we have that ability to hold back that yes and that no, we're actually, for some reason, able to listen more because, one, we're not projecting a meaning onto something. Two, right, we're actually listening to someone instead of thinking what we're going to say next.
Right.
We're actually perceiving what they're saying. And right, three, it just opens a door. It opens this channel of communication that allows us to, once again, put into not only and scrutiny our own beliefs or the beliefs that we're listening to, but allows us to once again reintroduce our reason to say, I agree with it, I don't agree with it. Because that's the thing about our domestication. Our reason is completely subjugated as well. It doesn't allow us to discern. It doesn't give us scrutiny because we don't want to rattle the boat, if you can say. We don't want to let go of the illusion. There's a question once I got. Someone asked me once, when did we lose sight of our authentic self? And the answer is quite simple. We lose sight when we prefer the illusion or the lie over the truth. But the best way to let go of the illusion, or the best way to let go of the lie, is to accept the truth when it's presented before us. We know it as a moment of clarity. We can know it as an aha moment. But it's basically that moment where life presents us the truth and we have a choice. Do we continue to believe the illusion or the lie, or do we choose to let go? If it's a pivotal moment in life.
Say that again. Do we believe to choose the illusion or the lie? I'm just repeating it because you dropped out. Or do we choose to let go, right?
Yeah, exactly. A moment of clarity without any action is just a thought that passes in the wind. But a moment of clarity that's followed by an action becomes the pivotal moment in our life. And it's basically the moment where we've chosen the direction we want to go in life. Like I said, today is the youngest I will ever be. And I can't give what I do not have. If I have conditional love in my heart and my will is so subjugated, then that's all I have to give. But if I choose to let go of those conditions, and I choose to let go of that conditional love, then I've got unconditional love in my heart, and I'm able to give that as well. I can't give what I do not have, which means in order to give that sense of understanding, that respect, I give it to myself. It's like saying, in order for me to say namaste to you, I learned to say namaste to myself, because then I know what it means to say namaste.
Exactly.
Respect myself. And from that awareness, I'm able to share that with you.
Super beautiful. Yes, super beautiful. And these conversations, this is why I love these conversations, Miguel. And I always invite people to have these conversations. And like even when I read a beautiful book, I share it with people and I say, have a discussion around it. Don't take everything that the Miguels are saying in the 4 agreements if you don't resonate with it. When I post something about transparency, the transparency is whatever you want it to be. Don't just listen to what I feel it is. Go and explore it for yourself. See how it resonates. Does it carve you beyond the lies and the illusion? If it's a tool that you use, whether it be a book, whether it be the Toltecs, whether it be yoga, whether it be, you know, whatever plugs you in to dissolve in the illusions that you're talking about, is really important. And actually what you said there, again, echoing it back for people listening, is that I know we hear it so much, Mickey, but you know, this whole thing about the personal transformation takes place within. And I know this is really your quest, right? To set people, give people the invitation to go on that path of personal specialization, or what, you know, whatever term we want to call it, to just dissolve all of the lies that have been attached to ourselves or agreed to ourselves that are no, that are really not. Yeah, that's your quest, the mission, and it's what your books are inviting, etc. And I think that when you bring it back to self-love, it's so hard sometimes for people, Mickey, to really realize that they have to love themselves fully, wholeheartedly, every cell in the body. You know, I remember you're in the Mastery of Love, you know, your dad writes about, you know, just honoring every cell in the body. You know, it's like waking up and acknowledging each cell and saying, hey, I love you today. You're all working together to, you know, to make me and enable me to have this experience. It's like, I honor you, right? I honor you cells. And it's like, but that seems, when I say to people, Mickey, tell me some things you love about your body, do you know what? 90% of people I've asked that question to never refer to the body. They always refer to something outside of the body.
Because we were taught that we can't accept our body unless it lives up to this image that doesn't exist. We always we truly believe that love comes outside of us, and that's one of the consequences of not trusting our own self, to not accepting our own self. It almost seems like a punishment if you ever do so, because they even think that you're full of something if you think that you're the greatest love of your life. But here's the thing, we're the constant in every moment of our life. From the moment we're born to the moment we die, we are the constant in every relationship we're in. Even when we're by ourselves, when we're alone, is when we actually can see what the status of our relationship is. If there's disharmony, if there's complete judgment that I can't be around myself, then there's something there that I become aware of that and to fix. Because when I'm by myself and I'm very comfortable, it means that I'm in peace with myself. But it's always an inner journey, because I can only control to the tips of my own finger. I can't control beyond it, because I only control this will. I only control the energy that animates this body, that animates this mind. I don't control the energy that animates yours. I don't control your will, nor anyone else's. Becoming aware of that is a very liberating thing, because when I'm able to become aware of that truth, it allows me to respect the will of everyone around me, because they're completely free to go in any direction in life, just like I am. So to say that I'm worthy of my love because this is who I am, the past no longer exists. It probably didn't happen the way I think it did, but I can't go back there and change a yes or no to a yes, because life is no longer there. The future doesn't exist yet, because it's the consequences of the choices I make now, which means the only place where I live, the only place where I'm experiencing myself, the only place where I'm able to express my will is in this present moment. A moment that moves with me from the moment I am born until the moment I die. But in that present moment, this is me, and this is who I am. I'm not 27 years old. I weigh 200 pounds. My hair is what it is. If I believe that the perfect version of myself is to be 27 years old with a full set of hair and weigh 170, that ain't the truth. And if I'm judging myself for not living up to that image, then I'm already rejecting myself, and I'm not willing to see myself. But here's the thing. We define what a flaw is with an agreement, in the same way that a word is an empty symbol whose definition is completely subject to an agreement. We define what a flaw is. Perfection is something that is completely free of any flaw. And we punish ourselves with those beliefs. But here's the thing. There's no such thing as a flaw. The only place where a flaw exists is in our agreements, in our mind. The world is perfect because it exists at this very moment. And the only flaws that exist are the ones we create with our own agreements. And they're constantly changing. They're constantly morphing. It's a belief. And it'll only exist while we say yes to it. And the moment we let go of it, nothing but perfection exists. Thus, everything is perfect because there's no such thing as a flaw.
Exactly.
Only in our society, and that's only by agreement.
Right there, go back a little bit. You said only in our society, and then it cut off. But I think you said only in our society, and then by agreement, right?
Only the flaw only exists in our society, and only by agreement.
Yeah, and again, it's like when we talk about self-love, I know we have an hour today, and that's nearly over. And what I love is that we've covered the spectrum of for me, when I talk about the lie, that's why when I picked up and read the Toltec wisdom and what the Naguals have been, I know if I'm saying it right, tell me if I'm wrong, the Naguals, yeah?
Yeah.
Am I saying is it Nagual? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Nagual.
Nagual, yeah. So, when I started reading that, again, it's another version of it. But when we talk about self-love, and it's almost, I don't know, the more that my awareness expands, it's like, how can in that truth and how can in this magnificent majesty of a creation there be any flaws, right? It's like, how is that even possible? It's like the design is too intricately intelligent for me to even, and even my it's still like, wow, look at these bodies, how they're made. It's like, what? It's like, it's so mind-blowing how we're here, the used to show itself. So when we talk about, I love that you bring up again this story of imperfection or the story of core unworthiness. Like, this is an old program, this is an old agreement. And I say this to everybody listening, and even if this is the dream that I'm now creating, it's the one I'm choosing very proudly and boldly, is that story of I am not enough, I'm imperfect, I'm unworthy. That is an old story. It's not welcome. I don't know how you feel about it. I'm pretty certain you agree with me.
Oh, I agree. It's like that also we've corrupted the word perfection to fit the judge. We see perfection through the eyes of the judge, that judge that continuously perpetuates our domestication, that if you want to be worthy of love, you have to be perfect. In my case, my name is Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. In order to be worthy of my name, I have to live the 4 agreements continuously. The telltale sign that I use the 4 agreements to domesticate myself is forever judging myself. If I judge myself for taking it personal, if I judge myself for making an assumption, that's the telltale sign that I've domesticated myself with the 4 agreements and corrupting it and turning them into the 4 conditions of my personal freedom. Right. And if I have that for myself, I'm going to give that to my wife. Honey, you are Mrs. Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. Here, read the book. Read the 4 agreements. Honey, you're taking it personal. Honey, you're making an assumption. I only hang out with people who are impeccable with their own words. At that point, it's no longer an instrument of liberation. It's an instrument of imposing and subjugation. And if we can see that if we can corrupt the 4 agreements in this way, we can corrupt so many beautiful traditions. We can corrupt music. We can corrupt the Bible, Krishna, Buddha, Siddhartha, the Quran, Alcoholics Anonymous, psychology, psychiatry. Humanity has created so many beautiful traditions that allows us to let go of unconditional love, but we're so attached to conditional love that we distort and corrupt all of them. Right. But here's the thing. Once we become aware that we're doing this, that we're domesticating ourselves, even with the way we look, even with music, even with the books we read, the moment we become aware of it, we have a choice. Do we continue to believe it, or do we willing to let go of it? And here's the thing that happens when we let go of it. We take out the corruption out of it, and it becomes anew. It's what's the expression I'm looking for? I am looking for the word that describes someone that's been no longer is the subjugator, no longer is the domesticator. Not the validation. The word I'm looking for is.
You're gonna find it. You're gonna find it.
It's the return of the prodigal son.
But you mean like when you, so you mean when we actually have the awareness to see through that we're actually corrupting, we're subtly, there's a subtle, like, subtle aspect of ourselves that's corrupting everything. And like you said, defining ourselves by it, whether it be the four agreements, veganism, the new story of reality, whatever. We actually have to be so acutely aware that and be discerning of our own bullshit, even when we think it's positive, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just remember the word, the redemption of our mind, the redemption of the word, the redemption of knowledge, the redemption of ourselves. The moment we stop subjugating ourselves, we redeem ourselves, and knowledge is no longer a distortion and reflects life just the way it is.
Right.
Because we're willing to see the truth.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I love that. And as you're speaking, I'm just seeing, it's funny, right? Life, everyone that watches these sofas, Simon on the sofa, it's like these conversations completely from day one, I along the way have been so often caught in my own, concepts, theories, ideas, dogma, belief, it moves and it changes. And still now, I'm constantly going like, what is, the love, the unconditional love, the self-love, the trust, the transparency, and that's leading me. Okay, Mickey, that's leading me, right? That's leading me down the path that it's calling me on. And along the way, it's constantly, I need to die, right? Which is funny because you said earlier, we die. And I know I've only just started reading the book on life and death. And I've read a number of books on death. But ultimately, when we're talking in the way we are and we're stripping away so much, Mickey, I'd love us to close this this conversation and just like, ultimately, if we're thinking that this is a dream, right, and we're dreaming it, and we're the ones that are choosing the symbols, and we're the grand creators of this artistic expression of us, right, this unique expression. Of course, the expression, the you could say the painting of us dies. But in your experience, in your dive, and your exploration with dreams with your family and so on, what dies? What dies from your perspective? I'd love us to just spend a few minutes just on that sense of death, and how death can be liberating.
Oh, sure. Well, first, I forgot what I was going to say.
You died to it.
Oh man. I was going to say something, and then at the end we talked about death. Wow, I totally went a blank. I was going to say something because you said something earlier that made me think, oh yeah, I want to say that. But now with death, what happens when death? And according to my father, nothing happens. And the reason why it happens is that, oh, I remember now.
Go on.
The Toltec, we're constantly dreaming. But dreaming to the Toltec means I'm constantly perceiving and I'm projecting. The main function of the mind is to dream.
Say that again, Miguel. We dropped you. I dropped you there. Start that again. Yeah, sorry, because it dropped out. Yeah, just only one sentence back. Yeah, go.
Yeah, the main function of the mind to the Toltec tradition is that to dream, which is to perceive and project. I perceive 360 degrees, and right now you see me project. I'm dreaming when I'm asleep, and I'm dreaming when I'm awake. I'm the constant point of perception. That's what dreaming is. So from our perception, we can either see the world as a perfect harmony or the perfect nightmare. It's always a choice to us. But when the moment happens, when death happens, life continues. The only thing that ceases to exist is the single point of perception. Imagine that you live your whole life from the point of view of a single drop in the ocean, and you only know life from this single drop. And then also when you pass away, your perception expands to the whole ocean, and the single point of perception ceases to exist. Life continues. The energy that animates this body is eternal, but this body is mortal. And with this body, with this mind, there's a single point of perception. I am not this body. I've watched my uncle die, and even though he left his body, and his body is right in front of me, he was no longer there. The bodies remained, but he was no longer there. which means that one day this body is talking to you will be a corpse. What died was the body, the energy that animates this body, that animates this mind, because I'm also not this mind. I am the force that gives it life. When this body dies, when this mind dies, the energy continues, but it lets go of the single point of perception. So my dad's point of view, he says the word nothing happens, as in nothing. The single point of perception ceases to exist, but life continues. It's eternal. And that's the beauty of it all. It expresses in so many ways. Of course, mind you, this is coming from someone who's telling you the story of death, and I won't know until the moment I die. Until then, it's a story. Until then, I've got nothing but life to live. How do I want to live it?
Yeah.
And that's the bigger unknown. I know one day I'm going to die, but what am I going to do from this moment to that moment? It could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be a year, it could be in 75 years. If I get to live as old as my great-great-grandpa, Don Ezequiel Macias, who lived to be 116 years of age.
Exactly.
How do I want to live it?
Yeah.
And that's the most important question.
And I think that, yeah. Carry on. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful, and I know we could talk more, but we've come to a beautiful, I think we come to a beautiful conclusion, and not a conclusion, like a circle, because I remember at the beginning of the conversation, you know, that was really what you were saying as well, right? It's like, I love it when the conversation comes full circle and we come back to like, how do we want to live? And I feel, you know, with this so much happening all at once, so much beauty, so much, you know, on our perception, so much suffering going on, etc., etc. But when we dissolve all of that stuff, like we said today, and just come from that open space of observing, I think repeating for people to say, I love that skepticism. You know, that skepticism is holding back their yes and the no. Yeah, I really like that, holding back the yes and the no, and just listening. You know, and you know that in itself, you know, it's like if the human starts to evolve into that much more aware state of being, then the way that we interact without so much attachment, I mean, that's just like fluidly dancing in wonder.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the beautiful thing about it all, because it's all about the relationship we have. Once we're able to clear up the communication, we can actually solve so many of our problems in this world. You know, there's famine, there's hunger, but here's the thing: we humans tend to merge like animals. Yesterday, I was watching a documentary about the migration of animals that go move because they're following the food, and we're watching nowadays so many starvation in the human species. But here's the thing: we humans are also nomads. That we only started developing stay in your place because of the agreements we create about countries. But if you understand, if you see that the illusion of a border only exists because of an agreement, and we're forcing someone to stay in that land even when there is dryness, if there was no border, the human would migrate. Right. Because that's our nature. We migrate. We're continuously moving. But because of our agreements, we are suffering because we're being forced to stay in a place that has no more water, that has no more food. We can solve our problems by the agreement to listen to one another, but we're so attached to what we've got, and I don't want nobody else to take it from me. You know, and exactly. Then we go.
Say that. Wait, because you froze there. Say we can solve our problems by, and then it froze. We can solve our problems by letting go of the borders.
By listening to one another.
Yes.
By listening to one another, because when we can listen to one another, we can actually create agreements that solve our problems.
Yes, exactly. You know? It's simple.
Yeah, it's simple, but we don't want to listen because we don't want to let go of whatever it is we think we have.
That is juice right there. You know, we don't. That's it for me right there, Mickey. Right. That really makes sense for me in what I interact with and see in the world. And I see this in myself. Right. Always bring it back to self. We don't want to listen. We don't want to listen because we're too attached to all the other crap. Because if we actually just stepped back and listen, and when you even look into permaculture and other modalities and people out there talking about this, if you actually just stepped back, stop talking and listen for a bit, the solutions are there, right?
Yeah, they're all there. You know, we just have to be willing to listen, which means be willing to listen to the truth.
Yeah. And we have to be willing to listen to the truth and die to the lies that have been upheld. And that is that, you know, and that, I mean, that comes into what you've been speaking about in even the 5 levels of attachment. And that's what, you know, that's the message. Ultimately, at the moment, that is the message, but we're not attached to that message.
Yeah, because it's only a truth for as long as we say yes to it.
Sorry, say again, sorry.
Because it's truth only for as long as we say yes to it.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Wow, Mickey. Yeah, thank you for this dance. I've enjoyed the conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Simon, for this opportunity. I really am grateful to you for having me on your couch, on the sofa.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the virtual sofa. Maybe one day I'll have you on the real sofa on my tours and travels.
Let's do it.
Listen, just to, you know, again, I know you've got underneath this video, there's the link to Mickey's website, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.'s website, and on there is the books that I found and reading. You can access them there, and also his new book's coming out on May the 23rd, which is, it depends on when you pick this video up. You can check it out, and the new book's called Mastery of Self, right? Yep,
it officially comes out next week, but I've heard from some people that it's already out in a couple of bookstores. So
super. So yeah, see how it goes. So yeah, just, you know, thank you. You know, it'd be awesome to talk, and, you know, maybe, you know what we should do one time, maybe we get you and your father on a little Simon on the sofa hangout, and we can bring to the community, we can bring both of you to the table.
That'd be fun. I would love to do it. Count me in.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. So yeah, that's it. Beautiful, man. You're welcome to leave. I'm going to just say goodbyes. I know you've got to go and do stuff. So just thank you so much. If you want to say goodbye to the people watching, feel free.
Thank you so much for coming. And I hope everyone has a wonderful time and enjoy everything in life. Enjoy it. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy being you.
Thank you so much. Take care. All the best. Take care. You can just eject yourself out of the eject seat. Take care.
Bye.
So there you go. There goes Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. Okay, everybody, here we are, live and direct at the back end of Simon on the Sofa, still live. Thank you for the live viewers joining in today. Super awesome. Nice to have live viewers. I like having live viewers. Changing on the sofa. Lots of things are changing. I'm merging into different things, doing lots of different things in the world, beautiful things. So blessed. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful to you for tuning in. I don't know who tunes into these talks. Some of you do leave messages and comments. Some of you, I know that, you know, you shared to me, you've been watching a number of the talks, and I love that. But so many people don't, you know, I don't really know who's absorbing these. Sometimes I get random messages of people say, wow, I've been watching your talks. They helped me so much. This is this, or like, you know, they say, oh, like 3 years ago, I was watching your, you know, it's like, I just have no clue. But what I do know is that there are definitely some people out there on this planet watching this talk. So I want to thank you for showing up and giving yourself an hour of the illusionary time and hanging out with me and Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, if you want to support Simon on the Sofa and the many projects that I do, not just this one where I record these beautiful conversations, then you can become a patron. Just become a patron of the Sofa. It's very simple. You just head over there and give $1, $2, $3, whatever you want per video that goes live. I only put 2 live at the moment for my patrons. So, and you can also cap the amount that you contribute. So, you know, if you only have $5 that you want to spend a month, you just put a cap on it within Patreon. And it's really simple. So you can support me and you can support this unfolding as we dance into the mystery. As so many things are crumbling and falling away at the wayside, we are actually moving into and evolving into new systems, new structures, new ways of relating beautiful, sacred ways of exchanging and coming together to support each other, to come out of our cocoon of bloody suppression and social and personal oppression and step into greatness. Dare to be great, step into our sovereign beings. Man, it's epic. I'm overwhelmed. I'm blown away by it. To really own that, own who we are beyond the limitations. So I hope this conversation you've enjoyed. Sending you love wherever you are. There's the link to patreon.com/Simon on the Sofa. Thank you to everybody that already supports this. Sending you love. You are magnificent. You are a miracle. Woo! Only you got to believe it. It's got to be an agreement that you agree to. Doesn't matter what I agree to or what Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. agrees to. It only matters what you agree to. So take care. Adios, amigos. Namaste. In Lakesh Alakin. Goodbye. Goodbye. I'm so happy. All right. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. Mwah.